What is going on, guys? Hey, I wanted to come back to it, and I wanted to bring you a video with Anderson Cooper on CNN speaking with Spike Lee about Governor Ron DeSantis, the state of Florida, and the educational system, and what they're doing and what they've done, and the way that he feels about it. I'm going to bring it to you. But if you guys would, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below.
The Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity has announced they're moving their 2025 annual convention out of Florida. The fraternity, established for African-American men, says Governor Ron DeSantis has, quote, harmful, racist, insensitive policies against the black community. They said they made the decision following the state's new social studies curriculum approved just last week. Here's the part that's come under fire. Middle school students will be taught about various kinds of work enslaved black people were forced to perform. Some examples listed: agriculture, carpentry, and transportation. And then it says this, quote, instruction includes how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. In a moment, filmmaker Spike Lee's reaction to those new guidelines. But first, what Republican presidential candidate and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said about all this last night.
These standards really were born out of that, and these are very thorough standards done by African-American history scholars. There is no agenda here. It is just the truth, and they talk in gory detail a lot of the bad in American history, including, of course, the injustice of slavery.
So DeSantis is now saying that there's no agenda here.
I don't think he's educated about the enslavement of my ancestors. Even they did have some skills, they were still enslaved.
All right, guys, man, right here, you can tell that Spike Lee, he never read this stuff. Again, he read the points maybe they were talking about, but he never read through the curriculum. He didn't. He did not read through this because, again, it's quite lengthy, but I went through a lot of it, and again, they don't whitewash history. They talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. They talk about what happened, and that people post-slavery, slaves post-slavery, were able to take the skills that they acquired to better their lives, again, to build something for themselves, to build something for their families post-slavery. And again, that's what they're talking about. But again, man, you can tell that Spike Lee, he got the summary of what they're talking about, but he doesn't really know, man. He did not go through any of this, man. And again, you can tell he didn't, because again, the majority of the points are about how bad slavery was. And again, it was bad, but that was the majority of the points. But again, man, you can just tell they have a certain narrative they're pushing, and that's it.
And another thing I'd like to say, I want to thank my wife, Tanya, because I kept using the term slaves.
Which they actually use
you gotta
in
say,
their curriculum.
You got to say enslaved.
Enslaved, yes.
It's a big, big difference.
It makes a difference because it's not...
It makes a difference.
To identify somebody as a slave.
Words are important.
This is a person who was enslaved.
And when you told me to come on your show, I had to pull my hat in because
I do understand that enslaved sounds better than slave. I do. If you're enslaved, that sounds better. Because again, there wasn't by your own will, that was by somebody else. And I agree, it does sound better. But again, in this context, they mean the same thing. They do. And again, what you're trying to do when you say, well, you shouldn't use that word slave, you should use the word enslaved. It's like what they're trying to do when they do that is they're trying to put themselves above you morally. Again, you shouldn't use that word. They look down upon you. You shouldn't use the word slave. You should say enslaved. So again, I do agree it sounds better. I do. But the fact of the matter is, man, again, it's semantics. You're playing around with the words. And you're doing so you can look down upon people that say the wrong words.
1619, that's when enslaved African people were brought to this country, were stolen from Mother Africa to work the stolen land from the Native Americans. For me, I always go back, for me, that's one of the foundations of the United States of America. The stealing of enslaved people to work the stolen land from the Native Americans and work from sun up to sundown and not be treated as human beings.
All land is taken. All land throughout history. And people war with one another. They go to war and steal land. Yes, again, it's not just white people, all those white devils. Man, again, they came over, they took the lands away from the Native Americans. They stole their land, and they used stolen people from Africa to work the land. It's like, first of all, white people work the land as well, number one. And number two, man, again, stolen people from Africa. No offense, no. That's, again, slavery was wrong. It was wrong, dead wrong. It happened around the world. It did. Again, that was the norm, not the exception. So it's not like we're different from the rest of the world. We aren't. But the fact of the matter is, man, again, people that came from Africa to work, they were bought. They were sold by other Africans, again, off the west coast of Africa, for the most part.
Students, it says instruction should include, quote, how slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their own personal benefit.
How can it be for your personal benefit when you're treated as an enslaved person? It's not like, oh, I'm a blacksmith. Okay, I'm going to put a shingle out there. I'm going to be a blacksmith. You were owned by Mazza.
One of the arguments being made by supporters of Governor DeSantis is that that schools were teaching kids to hate America by teaching, the history of slavery in this country, the history.
You learn to love America by learning the truth, the good, indifferent, and bad. That's what America is. We're trying to aspire to a dream, but we're not reached there, what Dr. King talked about.
You know what, Spike Lee? I agree. I do agree with that. We need to teach people the good, the bad, the ugly, no matter what. We need to. And that means, man, things like former slaves were able to take the skills that they acquired to benefit themselves, to benefit their families afterwards. In no way is it talking about how slavery was good. In no way. But again, if we're going to teach real history, we have to teach all of history. So I do agree with what you're saying. But again, I know you're saying it, but I don't believe that you actually agree with what you're saying.
This is some really dangerous stuff that this governor, and is he doing it for his presidential race? I don't know, but it's ill time, ill thought, and it's not the truth.
When he talks about, Florida's where woke goes to die, that woke corporations are a problem, wokeness has infiltrated every
What is wokeness? To say that black people have a right to be free or not be shot down by police or any other people? That's what woke means? We can't march in the streets and say Black Lives Matter? We can't do that? I don't understand what woke means.
You know what, Spike Lee? In no way is the state of Florida telling black people they can't be free or they shouldn't be free. What are you talking about, man? And then you're sitting there saying that black people are shot down by the cops. Again, black people And people have got to understand this. Black people are less than 13% of the population of the U.S., but yet they commit 55, almost 55% of all violent crime in this country. So again, we have truly got to understand that black people are going to have way more contact with the police as a percentage, because again, they commit actually in raw numbers higher rates of violent crime than white folks, than the rest of the country. Again, this country, over half of all violent crime is committed by black people. So again, there's going to be contact with the police. But again, you're saying that black people are being shot innocently by cops. Again, I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm not saying that, again, every now and then there is some kind of a case that comes up for both white and black people with cops. Man, again, a cop may be on a power trip or whatever. Man, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But what I am saying is that it's very, very, very rare. Again, majority of people that are caught, that are shot by the cops are shot by the cops because they're doing something to endanger other people. They're doing something to endanger the lives of the cops. And, again, man, they have to take action. But, again, what they're doing is really dishonest. And it's just flat out ridiculous. It is.
You son of a.